What's happening, YouTube? This is Robert, and this is video 1 of my HTML series. And in this video, I'm just going to go over some basics in setting up your environment. Some of the topics here that we'll go over: operating system, devices, and browsers. We're just going to barely touch on that. We're going to go into creating your first web page, and then how we can improve our process, and also some of my advice on how to go about learning this stuff, maybe even a couple of tips or tricks, take them or leave them. So if this is something that you're looking for, go ahead and stick with me in this video, and otherwise go ahead and jump over to the next video. Now, on the operating system, I use Windows. It doesn't matter if you use OS X or Windows or whatnot. Programming is going to largely be the same. Operating systems vary very little. On the device part of that equation, it's pretty much the same thing. I'm using an Acer Aspire 64-bit operating system, 64-bit processor, 8 GB RAM, and it doesn't matter if you have 2 GB of RAM or if you have 12 GB of RAM. It doesn't matter. It means very little. The viewport, the size of your screen, may be different than my viewport. So when we talk about widths and stuff like that, if I say, 1,000 pixels wide, it may look much wider on your computer, rather than mine if you have a shorter screen or a smaller viewport. And so we'll go over some of that in future videos, but for now, just know that as far as your programming, it doesn't matter which operating system or device you use, programming is going to be the same. The very minor differences that exist are going to be overcome easily. And so the big part for me is using Google Chrome as a browser. I really enjoy Google Chrome. There's Firefox, there's Microsoft Edge, Internet Explorer, Safari, you name it. But I enjoy Chrome specifically because they have Chrome DevTools, and it's the best tools out there in my own belief. Others may disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm still a new programmer, so take it or leave it. But that's what I use. It made my programming journey a lot easier. Simple, basic things to learn, but then later you'll learn that it goes very in depth for you. So I want to get right into actually coding. So I want to show you guys how simple coding can be, and later we'll learn how complex it can be. One of the things I want to do now is I'm going to bring up Notepad on my computer because I'm using Windows operating system, but if you are using OS X or Mac, then you can go ahead and pull up the text edit, which is going to be that same thing. And I'm not going to dive into the details here, guys, so largely I just want you to pay attention to all the little symbols that I'm using, exactly copy me, and then we'll go into details as to what all these mean in another video. So I'm going to start out with what's called a header. And so you can see an opening angle bracket, a closing angle bracket, and right between those you see H1. And I'm just going to put my name. And then you're going to see the same thing, but this time with a / inside of it. That just tells it where to begin and end and what the browser should know in between. Then we're going to do the same thing, but instead of a header, we're going to use a paragraph tag. In the paragraph, you can put anything you want. Literally. And what we're going to do is we're just going to save this. Now I could press Control S and save it. It's going to ask me to save it as something the first time I save it, or you can go to your file and do it this way. Does not matter. But what does matter, when you name it, you can name it anything you want. Can't have that semicolon in there, but you can name it anything you want. And so the thing that's important is that you have the extension .html. So when I save this, as in my case, I'm just going to put mypage.html, and then I'm going to hit enter, and now it's saved. And something cool about Windows, at least I think, and I'm sure Mac has the same feature, but if you hold the Windows key and press D, it brings you back to your desktop. And this My Page that I just built, if I double click on it, it's going to bring up my browser. And in this case, I'm using Google Chrome, but now you can see it doesn't show the H1 tag on either side of that header, and same thing for the paragraph tag. It's not going to show anything. The browser is not going to display that content for you. But what the browser will do is it's going to say, okay, this was an H1. I'm going to make this H1, this header, this size, and I'm going to make the paragraph this size. And we'll learn how to control that later to be any size, shape, or color that we want. That's the basic page. What I want to do is take you over to Sublime. This is what you want right here. Sublime Text is what I use. It's called an integrated development environment. Same thing as that notepad that I was just using. This notepad can create a document and a page, and I can write all my HTML in here if I wanted to. I don't recommend it, and the reason why is because this Sublime Text is going to have a lot of capabilities for you. If you're looking how to download it for your particular system, there's lots of videos out there. I'm not going to cover that in this video. But I do recommend Sublime Text, and this will improve your editing process tremendously. When we actually get into this, we're going to learn all sorts of things. Now, there's Sublime Text, there is Atom, there are a number of different text editors out there and available for your use, and I do recommend you use whatever one is best for you. But if you follow along with me on Sublime, I'm going to be able to show you shortcuts that I know on that text editor that'll make it easy for you. But I'll tell you also, I've watched a lot of videos where somebody was using Atom or another editor, and I tried one of their shortcuts in Sublime and it turned out to work just fine. And so if you end up using any editor, it's fine. I recommend Sublime. I love that thing. It is free to use at first. They don't time you on your use, but eventually they ask that you buy a license to support them, which is $70. I used it for free up until I became serious and up until I wanted to actually produce a live page, at which point I converted over to the licensed version. And so that's up to you as far as how that all works out, but I do recommend it. Getting back into our content here, I want to go over just a couple of my tips. Everyone has a learning preference. If you're auditory, you like to listen to people explain things and then do them yourself. If you're visual, you like to watch people do things. If you're kinesthetic, you want to be hands-on doing it as you learn. I have a secret option and I have teaching in there. I do recommend learning every single way you can. If you have a preference as to how you learn, that's great. But what's going to help you get the rest of the way there is being able to listen, watch, hands-on, do it, and then recall that information, teach it to somebody else. Even if you're just teaching it to the air out loud, it makes your brain recall that information, and the more often you're able to do that, the more skilled you're going to become. Repetition, 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 the mother of all skill. As far as the hands-on learning, I think that's a must. It's important for you to understand that what you watch on a video may not translate in real life. Often you'll find that coding is not about writing new code, but fixing the code that you've already written, or tweaking what you've already written, or correcting what you've already written. And so I do strongly recommend that you get your hands on and dirty as quickly as possible, so that you experience some of those things where you look at my video and you watch it and then you go to do it and it ends up not giving you the result that you expect, and then you have to troubleshoot or problem solve and figure out, 9 times out of 10 for me when I was starting out, it turned out to be my own fault. I miswrote code, I misspelled something, I forgot punctuation, I forgot characters. You're going to find that you run into those things, and the more often you get used to checking out your code in real life and correcting those situations, the more that you're going to become comfortable and familiar and speed up your entire process. Keyboard shortcuts and typing speed are going to really help improve your abilities. So the faster you can type, the faster you're going to be able to lay out code and get your projects done. So I do recommend taking some free typing classes if you're not a speedy typer. So that's it for this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Leave any comments if you have any questions.